And there's
Mhm.
lots of customers out there that are willing to pay you really good money
Mhm.
to show up quickly
Right.
and to provide a seamless experience. And so if you want to be a millionaire, you should do what millionaires do, right?
Right. Mhm.
They usually commit to physical fitness. What's up, man?
Hey, dude. I'm just telling you, laughing at the B-roll, man. Laughing at the
Yep.
B-roll. Yep.
It's
Just
always a good time, like right before the podcast.
yeah, it's a great time right before the podcast. Wish you guys could be here, but then we
Yep.
just gotta bring it down to serious mode. It's all business now. No more fun. No more
Yep.
fun.
All business, no fun whatsoever.
I had this thought, Jared. We
Yeah,
always intro with it's podcast Wednesday, but these podcasts don't come out just on Wednesday.
I know.
So, but I like it. So happy
Hey,
Wednesday, podcast Wednesday. You
happy
know?
podcast Wednesday.
Yep.
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 What's up, man?
Oh man, well, not a lot has changed since last Wednesday. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, good. Wow.
Sorry, folks, that was an inside joke.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, pretty good though, right? Um, let's see. Oh, I worked out in the evening yesterday instead of the
Yeah.
morning,
Mhm.
which was really cool because it gave me a lot of energy through the evening, so I could go get work done, yard work and junk.
Cool.
And really, what I struggled with is working out in the morning was so hard because I would like wake up to my alarm at some god awful hour of like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
or 5 a.m. And I think to
Yep.
myself, you mean that my next thing to do is something that I don't want to do at all? And I'm supposed to get up and
Yeah,
go do
dude.
that? Like I'm
Yeah.
supposed to get up and go jump around in my garage for 35 minutes?
Yeah,
Like
dude.
that
And you
sounds
just woke
awful.
up?
I just woke up. Like there's nothing good in that, right? I'm already awake when I don't want to be. I'm already about to do something I don't want to do. And like, the gurus will be like, yeah, man, that's what you gotta do. You just gotta like
Mhm.
turn yourself into the man to do that. And I get that. And I'm all for that, right? But if I can just avoid that whole cycle and then go and work out in the evening and still accomplish the fitness part, it makes waking up at maybe not so ungodly an hour, or maybe even at like 5 a.m. more attainable because the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go, oh, Jared, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow and I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I'm going to write
Yep.
in my journal. I'm going to
Yep.
read my Bible. I'm going to do these things and I'm not
Yep.
going to work out then because that's a different time. To me, that was inspiring. I was actually stoked. Like I set my alarm. I was like, man, I can't wait to wake up to go do those things I want to do.
Yeah, I slightly agree with you, but I think that for most people, their afternoon is much more likely to get interrupted
Yeah.
than their morning. And so if they put something as important as exercising and journaling and reading their Bible, they put
Mm-hmm.
that stuff in the morning because they don't want it to get interrupted because they know those are the things they got to do
Yeah.
to be successful in life,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So if you're not, I've been reading this book, The Millionaire Mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because like exercising regularly and physical fitness was one of the attributes that most rich people, I think it was like 21%, say that you need to be physically fit and healthy to be
Mm-hmm.
successful, right? They attribute
Mm-hmm.
that regular exercise, I think is how they worded it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to be a millionaire, you should do what millionaires do, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
They usually commit to physical fitness. Not
Mm-hmm.
saying you got to do it in the morning or the afternoon, but
Right. You
for
commit to it in
most
some way.
yeah, but for most people, it's going to be easier to stay committed to it if you do it at a time where you're less likely to have a distraction.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I
Yeah.
think definitely if you're going to a gym, I could see that the argument of the morning makes more sense because
Mhm.
because going to a gym takes time, right? You just turned an hour-long process into a 2-hour-long process.
Mhm.
And so for you to do that when you're done working and you just want to hang out with your family or you're tired and you're all grubby from doing whatever you're doing, to
Yeah.
then be like, all right, see everybody, I got to go to the gym.
Yep.
I could see that. For me, I just go jump around in my garage for 25 minutes and
Yeah.
like just try to do a high intensity workout
Yep.
and I can slip away for 25 minutes. I mean, I'm a dad, so that's like a standard bathroom break. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to catch up on those reels, dog.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I just replace that with working out. So two birds with
Heck
one
yeah,
stone on
dude.
that one. But I
Cool.
see your point. I do.
Yeah. That's what I would guard against.
Yeah, and I
Making
think
sure you get it in.
yeah, and I think with everything, it's like such a balance, right? Like because we have to balance work, family, fitness, all health, all these things,
Yep.
and everybody we should all just find the right way and the right system to do it. The
Dude,
gurus might say one thing, we should listen to that and be like, yeah, man, that's a really good idea. Now, how
yep,
can I put that into my life to actually work with who I am and my priorities?
you gotta do what works for you.
Yes.
It's your life. It's
Yeah.
not mine, it's not the guru's life, it's not anybody
Hmm.
else's life. Yeah, you can learn from all those people just like you said, but ultimately, you gotta do what works for you, and you gotta
Yep.
figure out what works for you and then stick to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yep.
lesson I'm learning or
Yeah.
have been learning the last year for sure.
Sure. Hmm.
Yep,
Cool, man. Well, I had a question
hit
just
me.
from some calls I've had, and so
Okay.
a lot of my calls and some of the clients that we have on the Plum Social side,
Mhm,
they're plumbing business owners, and they're just starting residential service, but
mhm.
they're in, I don't know if it was residential, commercial, or just whatever other kinds of plumbing businesses that they have. But I was just wondering, like, what is the draw and the pros and cons of sort of these different sectors, and why do you think that residential service is a great way to go as opposed to residential, commercial, or these other places?
I don't think first of all, what do you mean by residential commercial?
No idea. I'm just using words that I heard.
Okay.
Like, cause for me, it's just like my conversations with you are around the service
Yeah,
side, right? So that's
yeah,
like that's where I know these other things exist,
yep.
but I don't know what they mean, and I don't really know the pros and cons behind them.
Okay, so let's start. I split it up into 4 different categories. There's 4 different
Okay.
kinds of plumbing businesses you could be in, right? There is, like, 2 categories to start with. There's service and there's new construction,
Hmm.
and in those, you can be into commercial or residential.
Gotcha. Okay. Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
let's just, like, start weeding them out, okay? And then get down to why I think residential service is so much better.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Um, and I just wanna start out, like, I in all 4 business models, like, each 4 of those, they're gonna be different business models to make money.
Hmm.
You can make money with all of them, okay?
Hmm.
Just there's pros and cons to each one, and in my opinion, residential service is the best one to start with, and it's a really good one to stick with as well, so that's
Hmm.
why I chose it. We'll get into
Hmm.
that. But let's just start with, the whole new construction.
Okay.
So you can go new construction residential. Okay. So pro would be
Okay.
it's pretty easy to get into, right? Because it doesn't require a ton of tools. It doesn't require a bunch of overhead. Like if you have a truck with a pipe rack and you have some tools, you can go do residential new construction. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's good in that sense. The downside of residential new construction is that the guy building the house that's gonna hire you to plumb their house, right? You're either
Hmm.
gonna work for a homeowner or you're gonna work for a general
Mm.
contractor.
Hmm.
Those are gonna be
Mm.
your customers, right?
Gotcha. Hmm.
And both of those customers, 9 times out of 10, are after the cheapest price. So they're
Yes.
gonna go get bids, and they're gonna want to hire the guy who brings the most value at the cheapest price, right?
Sure. Hmm.
And so the value they're looking for is he qualified to plumb my house to the
Hmm.
point where my plumbing won't look any different than anybody else's plumbing and it'll work properly?
Yep.
Okay. So
Hmm.
not super high quality standards,
Hmm.
and then definitely want the cheapest price.
Hmm.
So it becomes this war to the bottom, right? So it's really
Yeah.
hard to
Gotcha.
charge enough to make a good money doing residential new construction.
Yeah.
So what you
Gotcha.
need to do is you since the margins are so much smaller, like your profit margins on each job is so much smaller,
Hmm.
then you need to make up for it by doing a lot of it, right?
Gotcha.
In order to make a lot of money.
Hmm.
So then
Mm.
you need to go do a
Gotcha.
lot
Huh.
of new construction.
Hmm.
And so imagine you got 20 houses going at once, okay? You could make
Hmm.
good money doing that.
Hmm.
And you've got guys running around, in their own trucks, have their own tools, just banging out residential new construction. That is
Mhm.
a business model that you can go with. But the hard part of getting started in that is you got to go buy all the parts for that first house and that second
Mm,
house and that
yeah.
third house and
Yeah,
that fourth house.
before you even start to get,
Yep.
equipment on hand that you can then use for the next job and the next job.
Yep. And then most general contractors are going to be 30 days out. So
Mhm,
they're going to want you to bill them. Like once you rough in the house, you're going to go do underground, let's say. And
mhm,
then you're going to bill them, they're going to bill the customer. 30 days later they're going to get paid and they're going to pay you.
mhm.
Some of them are 60 to 90 days out, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes this constant like chasing money game
Mhm,
is what happens. Okay.
mhm,
And I've done that. I've done lots of new construction all in a row. And it's this constant like chasing money game. You never know where your
mhm,
money is.
mm,
Everybody always owes you money and it
mhm.
can get difficult. Okay. So it's really hard to like get into and make money right away and hold on to money and then use that money to scale.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
It's a
Mhm,
difficult business to get into where you can make good money. Right.
mhm,
It'd be different if you had like a ton of money and this giant bankroll and you
mhm.
just start going and knocking out houses and
Yeah, sure.
you're going to get a few grand for each house, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, sure.
But it's a tough one to get into. The profit margins are low, the risk is high. They want bottom dollar prices. And so for that reason, I avoid it.
Gotcha.
So let's move into new construction for commercial. Like you
Mhm,
can make a lot of money with commercial new construction.
mhm.
So there's lots of like mechanical contractors or big plumbing companies that they only do like big buildings or
Right.
big industrial projects and things like that. And you
Mhm.
can make millions of dollars a year running a business that does that kind of stuff. I've worked for contractors doing that, ran that kind of work, and I've seen the numbers behind it, and I know how much money you can make. But again, you got to think about it like if you're just starting a plumbing business,
Right.
getting into that kind of work can be very difficult. You've got to start real small at the bottom and
Mhm,
then work your way into that kind of work. Okay. So
mhm,
typically, to get that kind of work, you're going to bid it. Again, they're after
mhm,
the cheapest dollar amount. So you're going to
mhm,
bid it. And then you're going to have to get bonded for that work as well. So,
mhm,
and the bigger
mm,
the job,
mhm,
the bigger the bond you're going to need. And the
mhm.
bonding companies aren't going to be willing to bond you unless you have a history of doing work close
Sure.
to that size, right? So you kind of have to work up to that
Mm,
in the commercial
mhm,
world.
mhm.
So it's a long process to get there. It's a lot of work. It's because you're building very specific tailored buildings and each building is different. It's hard to scale, it's hard to
Mhm,
systemize, and
mhm.
so the whole thing is just fairly difficult, right?
Right. Mhm,
Now, can you make money in it? Yes, and I would say if you want to go that route, I would start with residential service and
mhm.
then move into new construction,
Yeah, because
commercial.
then you can have money to
Yep.
actually invest into that side of it.
Yep. Yeah,
Mm,
and then you can
gotcha.
have part of your business that is cash flowing
Mhm.
while this other part isn't, because it has the
Yeah,
same
sure.
problems, right?
Uh-huh.
In
Mhm,
commercial new construction, a lot of times it's 90 days out. And so you're going to do what's
mhm,
called progress billing.
mm,
And, especially on like
sure.
government projects. So you're going to go, we're talking huge buildings. So you're going to go buy hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and materials that you're likely not going to get paid for a long time. Because
Right.
what you do is you would buy all these materials. Once they're on site, you're allowed to start progress billing. So then you can say, okay, I have
Mm,
all these materials on site. Now I can bill for the materials.
mhm.
And so they'll give you a certain percentage. But then that certain percentage is 90 days out,
Sure,
right?
yeah, so it's not even right then and there. You don't collect that
Mm-mm,
check in that moment.
mm-mm. And
Yeah,
then
gotcha.
you're going and putting these materials in, and you're ordering more equipment and more
Mhm,
materials, and you've got labor costs and all the associated costs with that, equipment costs, and you're just progress billing as you go. But you're always
mhm.
like a couple steps behind. Okay.
Yeah, sure, so you're still kinda chasing that cash.
Yep, chasing the cash. Now,
Mhm.
those ones, if you can have enough cash to float those chases, then at the
Mhm.
end of the job,
Sure.
usually there's a pretty good payday. You make pretty
Mhm.
good money. So
Mhm.
I see why people are attracted to it, right? You can
Mhm.
go
Mm.
do one job and make a lot of money.
Right, sure.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
But
gotcha.
again, very hard to get into.
Mhm.
So that gets rid of new construction altogether,
Mhm.
in my mind.
Mhm.
Unless you have some sort of like you got somebody, in the family that's already in new construction, you can go get into their business and it's already a thriving business.
Sure, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Then I would be okay maybe getting into it.
Mhm.
So then it goes into the service world, right?
Mhm.
So you've got residential service and you've got commercial service.
Mhm.
Now, you can make money at both again. People who do commercial service work, they make good money, but the hard part about that again is like you're dealing with commercial buildings and you're not directly dealing with the owner of the building most of the time.
Right.
You're
Sure.
usually dealing with like a maintenance man
Mhm.
or somebody of that nature, right?
Property manager.
Property manager. And their
Mhm.
sole job is to get the maintenance done on the building
Right.
at the lowest dollar amount.
Sure.
So they want somebody who's reliable, who can maintain the building, but not cost a bunch of money.
Yeah, because they have a
So
profit margin to look after themselves.
right. Yep. And
Mhm.
so it becomes difficult to charge enough to be able to
Mm.
maintain profit margins again
Mhm.
with commercial maintenance, right?
Mhm.
So then, like in that world, you really need to get into like maintenance contracts. You really need to get into
Mm.
where you're doing these regular maintenance things on a routine and you're pushing that work into your slow season and you need
Sure,
to do
yeah.
it at a fairly decent scale.
Mhm.
Or get into things where you have large pieces of equipment that you're replacing because you can make good money on the markup of the large pieces of equipment, right?
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
So I know some people who own businesses like this who are fairly successful, right? They're successful in their own world. They've got, 10 or 15 guys going doing commercial maintenance service contracts and
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, like their profit margins are much lower than the residential service world.
Mhm.
And so is there money to be made? Yes. Is it harder to make that money? Yes. Is it
Mhm.
harder to get into? Yes. And then because again, you're dealing with a commercial building where a lot of stuff is different and there's a lot more systems going on, you need more specialized labor.
Mm,
Becomes
mhm.
harder to systemize because there's a lot of different things, a lot of
Mhm.
different moving parts, and so it gets harder to like remove the owner from the business as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Hmm. So the
And
exit strategy isn't quite as obvious as residential service.
I would say, yeah, when you say exit strategy, you mean the owner getting removed from the business. Yeah.
Yes.
As far as
Mhm.
selling it, it'd probably be, just as easy to sell.
Sure, of course.
Um, but I don't know that, with smaller profit margins, you
Mhm.
might have a $5 million commercial business that does 10% profits. So it's making 500,000 a year.
Mhm.
That business isn't going to sell for much as a residential
Mm.
business
Right.
doing 5 million with 25% profit margins, right?
Right. Mhm.
Okay. So in my mind, that gets rid of getting into commercial
Sure.
service, right?
Mhm.
Just because of the difficulty of getting in there.
Mhm.
Now there are exceptions, like some people already have ins, they've already got a business or whatever. That's a whole different story. We're talking plumber who wants to start a plumbing business. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that leaves us with the last one is residential service. So the pros of residential service are it's really easy to get into, right?
Mhm.
There's not much involved in residential plumbing service.
Mhm.
Like most houses have all the same stuff in them.
Sure.
So you can get into it very easily. The tools aren't super expensive. The knowledge needed isn't super expertise. Like you can train any plumber to come do residential service.
Mhm.
Um, and it's, it's easy. You
Mhm.
can which makes it, so it's easy to systemize, which makes it easy to scale.
Mhm.
And the cool part is you're dealing with a residential customer who it's their house and
Right.
about they don't necessarily care about the quality of the actual plumbing.
Mhm.
They do care about it more than I would say the new construction customer, but they care about the quality of the service, right?
Yeah, sure. The overall service experience.
Yes. And there's
Mhm.
lots of customers out there that are willing to pay you really good money
Mhm.
to show up quickly, to put in a good product, to offer a warranty, to not have to come back out later and fix something,
Right.
and to provide a seamless experience. So from the time they call you to the
Mm.
time they pay your bill is as short as possible and as easy as possible, right?
Mhm. Mhm. So that
That's
they can get back to their lives.
yes. So there's lots of customers like that that's what they want. And so and you can set up your business very easily, especially in today's age with software, to be able to go serve that need. And the best part about that is you get paid today,
Yeah.
right? Get paid
Mhm.
today, money in the bank tomorrow. So
Mhm.
you've gotten rid of like it's the ease of entry. It's easy to get
Yep.
into.
Mhm.
Commercial service, not as easy to get into. You get paid today. Cash flow is really good. Commercial service, you ain't getting paid today. Cash
Mhm.
flow's tough, right?
Mhm. Mm.
Unless you got a
Mhm.
bunch of cash laying around,
Right.
then that helps with your cash flow.
Yeah.
Um, can you charge enough to actually maintain profit margins? Yes. So now you have a higher profit business
Right.
versus commercial service. Profit margins are lower because of the customer that you're dealing with.
Mhm.
And then is your labor super skilled, right? So you have less skilled labor than you do for commercial service, I would
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
um, which makes it so that you can systemize,
Mhm.
train,
Mhm.
you know, and have this business that runs without you. Ultimately, remove yourself from the business. I know you have this real business over here that
Sure.
was all of those things. It was easy to get into, it was easy to make money with. It's a great little business.
Mhm.
And so, for anybody that would want to get into any of the other ones, I would say go start the residential one first
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
use that cash flow to go get into the other ones.
Yeah, and it seems like the lessons that you'll learn along the way are going to be really helpful because you're just
Yeah.
going to learn a lot of business stuff with relatively low risk. Because
Mhm.
right off the bat, I mean, in any case, it's going to be just you, right? But right off the bat, it's like you can go and you can do these jobs that are relatively low risk,
Yeah.
small time horizons. So you can learn all these skills and then you
Yep.
can hire a crew and learn management skills. And then you
Yep.
can up your game to the commercial side. And now suddenly you have skills of management, you have understanding of your P&L, like you understand marketing,
Mhm.
you understand these things, which those things for the commercial side, to my understanding, aren't as important, like with the marketing and whatnot. Because I've
Right.
talked to companies who are going into service and they haven't done it yet. And I'm like, what kind of
Yeah.
Google reviews you got? They're like, oh, we got like 4. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like, well, we've
Yep.
been in business for 35 years. I'm like, oh, because you're commercial, right? It's just
Yep.
the different perspective.
Yep.
But you just have so many skills that you learned that then you can transfer and then sort of transform to the new niche. And I think you'll
Yep.
you'll just be better off. You'll be more experienced and you'll just be a
You
better
will.
business person.
You will. But here's the thing though. Those people, like if they took that advice and they were like, okay, I want to go commercial service or commercial new construction or residential new construction,
Mm-hmm.
but according to what, Jared said, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go into residential service.
Mm-hmm.
This You're going to go grow that residential service business and you're going to see how easy it is to operate and you're going to understand it and it's going to make you a ton of money and you're going to be like, why would I go get into commercial
Yeah.
service?
Unless
Like
I just want headaches,
I'll go do more of this. Like
Yeah.
this
I'll
is
open
so
up
much
another one or I'll
easier.
get it
Yeah.
bigger.
I'll
Yeah.
go buy one in this town next door or I'll go
Yeah.
buy one in the state next door and then I'll have two and
Mm-hmm.
I'll improve that one a little bit and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll be making a bunch of money, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Hmm.
to me it's like to me it's a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of plumbers that are coming in, they've
Mm.
either worked for commercial contractors or they've worked
Mhm.
commercial service work,
So they know the work.
and they haven't really seen like what it looks like on the back end of a residential service business. Like they don't like we were talking on our last podcast. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, sure.
So they don't know that a residential service business can operate really smoothly,
Right,
can make
sure, with
a ton
high
of money,
margins.
can
Mhm.
have really good
Mhm.
profit margins. It's easy to get into, and they don't really have the
Mhm.
experience of thinking about these things either
Sure.
because they don't have the business knowledge, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think trips guys up is they're in the job, they're working for somebody else, they're plumbers, and then they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, yeah, I understand what's going on here,
Yeah.
and then I understand what's going on over there."
Yeah.
When they don't because they're just not in that business owner position.
Yep.
They don't see the back end, so they don't truly understand.
Right.
Yeah, that
Yep.
makes a lot of sense, and it's much more comfortable to just continue to do what you know, as
Yep.
to your previous point, and so you're like,
Yeah.
"Why don't I just keep doing this?" I already know
Yep.
how to do this.
Yeah,
One
totally.
question I had is like, so like one objection I hear, or maybe this not necessarily isn't even an objection, but it's just a thought. Like, what is just one of the barriers that kind of spook guys going into residential service?
A lot of time it's just that they've never done it before,
Gotcha.
and
Nope.
they don't want to, like, go talk to customers.
Yeah.
They don't want
Hmm.
to have to deal with billing the customer on site, having that
Mm,
face-to-face interaction.
sure. That little conflict, because it is
Yeah.
like a little conflict moment where you're
Mhm.
asking a price, and
Yep.
there's all these
Yeah.
weird things that can happen in that moment that is uncomfortable.
Or, there's a lot of plumbers,
Mm-hmm.
they're just anti-service work, and
Sure.
I would say to them, "You're not gonna be the one doing the work." Like, eventually, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna have to do it for a short period of time, and then other people are gonna do the work, and there's tons of plumbers out there who love to do service work.
Hmm.
So why not take advantage of the good business model and do it? Whether
Yeah.
you whether you like the work or not doesn't matter. At some
Yeah.
point in time, it's not
Yeah.
gonna be about the work, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, all of those businesses at the end of the day, if you were to get into them and grow them and make money with them, and run it like a legit business, they're all just gonna be business at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So,
Yep. Still, yeah. Yeah,
why
that's
not
true.
choose one that's an easy business? That's a
Yeah,
that's a
sure.
profitable business,
Yeah.
right? Why
Mhm.
choose the harder one?
Mm. That's a really good point because again, the perspective of the new plumbing business owner is their context, which is
Yep.
I understand the work that I do with my hands
Yeah.
and the direct fulfillment of service.
Yep.
Just because they don't know the business side yet, where if they could like see 2 years down the road, like in your case, where now your business is doing awesome and it's just running and you're living your
Yep.
life.
Yep.
Like I think like when I have these conversations, I try to like phrase to these plumbing business owners like, okay, like think about your plumbing business as the potential to start whatever you want to do in the rest of your life because it
Mhm.
has that potential. Like you can
Yeah.
create this thing so it's valuable in a
Yep.
very short amount of time. I'm not talking a decade,
Yeah.
potentially not even 5 years. I'm talking like 3 years and you could
Yeah.
be doing your next stage. Like
Yeah.
how exciting is that? And like I think that's something that people should get excited about being plumbing business owners. It's like, dude,
Yep.
you guys have an incredible opportunity to create something of value and then do something different. Like there's not a lot of people out there who have that
Yeah.
opportunity. And
No.
so like, man, like seize that.
Yep.
Cause if you have a
Yeah,
plumbing
you
business right now, you've done so much of the hard work of having the courage to just start the thing.
Yep.
Like you could be done with the thing in 3 years and on to your next stage, doing whatever the heck you want.
Yeah. Anything,
Yeah.
literally.
Anything.
Then you're totally right, like and that opportunity only lives in residential service.
Yeah.
That
In that time
opportunity to
horizon.
be, like,
Mm-hmm.
done in 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
it only lives in residential service. To be 3 years
Mm.
in, making $1,000,000 a year, it only lives in residential service,
Yeah.
right? So, like, think about it. Like, my 3rd year, I made $1,000,000, right?
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
don't think about plumbing ever. I don't care
Yeah.
what kind of business we're doing at this point, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
care because residential service is more profitable, but
Mhm.
I don't care if it's service work. If I like
Mhm.
service work or I don't, it doesn't matter. I'm just a
Mhm.
business owner at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
that's where I think you're right. A lot of guys get tripped up. They're like, "Oh, I hate service work, or I don't want to do that kind of work," and they just kind of envision themselves always
Mhm.
doing the work
For
and
like
having
30, 40 years or something.
yeah, or even they just don't even know that it's like possible to
Mhm.
go grow a business where like you don't have to do any work. That's not even a thing in their head, right?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Because I know for me, like 3 years ago, I didn't think that was possible. I didn't even know. I had no
Mhm.
idea. Like if you'd
Mhm.
have told me 3 years ago, I'd be sitting here doing a podcast talking about plumbing business 4,000
Mhm.
miles away, and I got a business
Mhm.
that's doing a bunch of revenue and making a ton of money, and I don't even work in it. I'd be like,
Mhm.
"What? You're crazy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it
that's
doesn't.
not
Mhm.
possible. You can't do that." Right?
Mhm.
Like it was scary as all get out even moving to Florida because I wasn't
Mm.
even at that point I wasn't like sure that it was
Mhm.
possible for that
Mhm.
business to like, can it actually run with me 4,000 miles away? Like it was spooky.
Mhm.
But after being down here, it's like, oh yeah, that's totally possible. Like this is what business is supposed to be like,
Yeah.
right? That a business should run without you. It's how
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool,
So I
man.
don't know. Yeah.
All right. I
Wasn't it
now
just sort of
know.
where it's at?
Yeah, cool. Now I know. Thanks, man. That was very educational. The last thing I want to say is that just when I was helping you rough in that house back in the day,
Yeah.
like all this information is now coming in there and talking to the crazy homeowner, bless his heart,
Oh, dude.
you
Yep.
know, as he was stressing out because he's spending so much money making all these
Yeah.
changes. And yeah, huh. Interesting. It's a little,
I calculated the math on that job.
mm-hmm,
It was like a $70,000 job to like do the
mm-hmm,
plumbing and the heating in his house. Big house
mm-hmm.
though.
Yeah, big house.
I
Kept
calculated the
getting
math.
bigger.
My hourly rate on that was like $22 an hour. It was
Oh,
terrible.
dude. Yeah, that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So 70,000 sounds really good when you see it. You're like, "Yeah, 70 grand? That's
Yeah.
like that's my life." And then
If you
you're like,
take
"Wait a
out all
second."
the materials and all the equipment and then you
Uh-huh.
calculate all the time you spent on that,
And
you're not
then
making
you
I mean, if I would have paid somebody to do that, I would have lost my butt.
yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. Huh, funny. Cool,
Yeah.
man. That was a great conversation. I really appreciated all that.
Cool, man. See you, Holmes.
See you next Wednesday.